Force 13's live stream. Force 13 Live, we're still covering the two storms that we were talking about just yesterday. Tropical Storm Zeta still got a good appearance as it enters the Gulf of Mexico. Emerged off the Yucatan early today. Rather broad shield around it. The central core there could have an opportunity to strengthen significantly. Hurricane warnings out in force for those same areas that have been affected by so many this year already. We'll pick up on that shortly. But the first thing tonight really is that looking over there in the Western Pacific, we've got Typhoon Molave, which is due to make landfall in Vietnam. We're trying to nail down the timing of this. Our latest best guess is that we think it will make landfall in about an hour and a half to 2 hours. But it's hard to tell, it's oscillating quite a bit. Slight northwestward motions could mean that it will make landfall a little bit later than that. We'll see how things go. But very close to land now, about 80 miles offshore. And just starting to weaken a little bit, down to a 110 mile per hour category 2 on our latest estimates. My name is Nathan Foy. I'm joined by our team tonight, a rather small team. I get the impression that a lot of people are fatigued by this hurricane season and what it's had to offer. I think they deserve a big break, but for some of us, there's always got to be someone here, so tonight we have David and Christian. Good evening to you both.
Good evening.
Hi Nathan, good to be here on what's turning out to be another busy period considering what we've got up here in the West Pacific.
What we're looking at on the screen right now is close-up imagery there, rapid scan of Tropical Storm Zeta. So we've got two situations active, so we'll try and cover them both as best we can during this coverage. And naturally, if you start your message with Force 13 on the YouTube chat, you can send in your questions to us, and sometimes that sort of paves the way to where the broadcast goes, really. But we'll divulge all the information as it comes in as well. Any breaking news, the National Hurricane Center will update on Zeta at the end of this hour. At the start of it, the information is as such: 65 miles per hour, pressure of 984 millibars, moving northwest at 14 miles per hour, positions 22.7 north, 90.3 west as of the 4 p.m. Central Time update. Storm surge warning is in effect for the mouth of the Atchafalaya River to Navarre, Florida, Lake Bourne, Lake Pontchartrain, Pensacola Bay, and Mobile Bay. A hurricane warning for Morgan City, Louisiana to the Mississippi-Alabama border. Lake Pontchartrain, Lake Maurepas, and metropolitan New Orleans. Tropical storm warning for the Mississippi-Alabama border to Okaloosa-Walton County line, Florida. Tropical storm watch for west of Morgan City to Intracoastal City, Louisiana. You can see it depicted on the graphic on the left-hand side of your screen there. A rather thin cone, as you can see. So the National Hurricane Center pretty sure about where it's going to go. Part of the reason why that cone is so thin is because it's likely to move pretty rapidly between the second and the third point there. That's a 12-hour period where it's off the coast of Louisiana at 1 p.m. Wednesday, and it's into central Alabama by 1 a.m. Thursday. What do we think about Zeta right now? Christian?
I have no thoughts. I mean, it's cleared the Yucatan. It's moving into the Gulf, and expected to make, according to the cone, by what I'm seeing, expected to make landfall at the coast. I want to say southeastern Louisiana.
Yep.
and the coast of Mississippi.
Yes, probably a secondary landfall there by the looks of things, unless it goes towards the eastern edge of the cone. Just to point out as well, storm surge consequences potentially. Mouth of the Pearl River to Dauphin Island, Alabama, 5 to 8 feet. And many other areas extending as far as Yankeetown, Florida, could see up to 3 feet of surge on the eastern side. The surge will probably be higher east of the storm center than on the west and more widespread, as will the winds most likely. You can see the wind field graphic on the right hand side of your screen showing the expectations there. Bit cut off, that graphic, but you can see up above 70% chance of tropical storm conditions along the coastal areas. We're pretty sure that's going to happen. But even well inland, that you can see tropical storm conditions potentially. It might not weaken particularly quickly in that sense because it's moving so quickly onwards. So it could even enter Tennessee, even towards Virginia, before losing the potentially damaging tropical storm force winds. Now, over to the western Pacific, and we've got Typhoon Molave. There's the Philippines. That was their last signal. I think that would be out of date now, yes. But on the right-hand side, you can see the JMA's cone. Let's see if we can big that up then to cover the whole screen, 'cause it's the most relevant factor now. And pretty straightforward. Landfall expected very soon. Probably between... I don't know, it's hard to say. But we're really looking at towards the next 4 hours or so. Would be the best guess.
And Nathan, a Joint Typhoon Warning Centre, just reading their information, and animated enhanced infrared satellite imagery depicts a transient eye feature, spiral bands of deep convection, wrapped into an obscure low-level circulation centre. The initial position is based with high confidence based on the microwave eye feature in a 37 gigahertz image. What was the intensity that we were running with?
So for Molave right now, we think it's gone down just slightly to 110 and a pressure of 958. Just because it appears that the eye structure is disintegrating as it gets close to the Vietnamese coast. Still huge cloud tops on the southern side there, you can see on the imagery, and quite clearly it's going to be another serious rain problem for the coast of Vietnam. We're looking at potentially maybe 20 inches of rain for parts of the coast there and inland, extending along a line that the storm will be following. And Vietnam has had its more than fair share of bad rain events this season so far, so that's another one to add to the list, and I'm afraid it may well not be over, because behind that we have Invest 99W, which has been designated a tropical depression by the Japanese meteorological agency, and we think so too. The JTWC about to do so probably. That is going to strike the Philippines probably as a typhoon and then move on to Vietnam, could make a landfall very close to where Molave is doing right now.
And for our viewers, Nathan, and as I mentioned prior to, just before we came to air, the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre has a cyclone formation alert on 99W.
But it really should be a tropical depression. ASCAT has supported such, and visual satellite appearance has supported such since about 12 hours now.
Well, I'll keep an eye on the centre. They'll probably update when they come out with their next advisory. Read the Molave on impacting Vietnam. I was checking a website that has local streaming webcams. It's completely down, so I can't get any live streaming from Vietnam. But as you said, the flooding
that could be demand within Vietnam for all we know.
Yeah, that's true. But the flooding, it's just, there's no let up for them.
So in short, those are the two systems that are active, Tropical Storm Zeta and Typhoon Molave. Or is it just two? Or is it more? Yes, you'll find that the answer is that it is more. I've not got the imagery just now, but we did declare earlier on, our estimate at least, that one of the systems off Brazil has now briefly attained subtropical storm status. I was supposed to get that for you visually, but unfortunately I don't have that just now, which is a shame. But
And that's the other one as opposed to, I'm gonna get his name wrong, Manny?
the one that was named by the Brazilians there, which looked appalling.
That one's gone now.
Really shouldn't have been named. It's virtually gone now. Yes.
Yeah.
So just to mention for that, you'll probably only hear it once or twice during this broadcast since there's no imagery. But there is imagery. I just have lost it. Anyway, this is the imagery of Zeta. I must say, big burst of convection there in those later frames on the west. And digging round to the south side, so Zeta is absolutely not finished. It's not doing a gamma. It is going to definitely turn towards the north, almost following Delta's track just a little bit further east. Although, hopefully, it won't get anywhere near that intensity. And the National Hurricane Center expecting a Category 1. I think that's still the case. I hope so. Some models suggesting it could get to borderline Category 2 before landfall, though. So, more questions. What is our schedule for Zeta's coverage tomorrow, and will we be doing landfall coverage on Molave? Well, if Molave makes landfall during our stream tonight, again, it's tough to say whether it's going to happen in 1 hour, in which case we'll be here, or if it will happen in 3 hours, in which case we'll be off the air. Inconsequential for those on land. Vietnam is already experiencing probably typhoon conditions in those areas right near the storm center. It will be making landfall around, let's see here, something like 35 miles, maybe a little less, south of Cang Gai, I believe it is. I'll just get some more, just looking for some more imagery on my end here so that we can just confirm where it is just at this moment in time. And we'll be able to show that a little bit later on, but just for the time being, I would estimate the center, and again, this can take a little bit of time to suss out, but I do think it's important to share the information as soon as I can calculate it, that the storm right now is probably somewhere around 37 miles offshore.
We must be getting very close, Nathan. But impressive satellite imagery once again.
So 37 miles offshore, and I'm just trying to get a perspective. Nope, struggling with one here. Well, there you can see it's moving. What I'm trying to get is how far it's moved in the last hour or so. I'm not having much luck with that, but the way it's looking, I think it could be just over an hour until that thing makes landfall there. Let's take some more questions. Well, actually, got to answer that first question about Zeta's coverage tomorrow. Well, yes, we will be on the air tomorrow for Zeta. I'm not sure if we'll be doing a morning stream. I think we will be doing a stream at some point tomorrow morning. Not sure when just yet. I imagine the most likely time would be 9 AM Central, but I can't confirm that yet. We will definitely have an evening stream, much like this one. Is there another system in the Pacific? There's plenty of systems in the Western Pacific, and there may be something next week in the Eastern Pacific, which you got to keep watching as well. What else have we got? The GFS and the Euro has a storm forming in the West Pacific in 48 hours that goes to 930 millibars in about a week. That's the one behind Invest 99W, which should be a tropical depression by now. So that's the one down hold on, let me see if we can just get that. There's the wide shot. Okay, so Molave on the left-hand side of the image. In the middle there, and you'll agree it looks quite good, is that new tropical depression. Definitely looks like a cyclone at this point. Certainly got the rotation, it's got the convection, it's got the wind speeds 35 miles per hour at least. That's going to sink towards the southwest, towards the Philippines, and just on the very edge of the shot, I wonder if we can pan it up just a little bit further so that we can see over there on the right hand side, yes, that other system there, right down near the that's just the easternmost part of Micronesia, near the Marshall Islands. That area of interest is the one to watch for next week.
Nathan, would I be right to say that I've been monitoring the Himawari 8 satellite imagery also via the AU channel. I've been looking at quite a bit of activity, Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, and I'm just wondering whether some of this convection might have drifted to the northwest, and that's developing down there on the right hand corner of the screen. I'm just wondering whether it's just a thought.
What was that again? I was just reading comments there.
I've been monitoring the Himawari 8 imagery via the AU channel and the stream, and I've been focusing on the Solomon Island, Papua New Guinea, the northern, the Bougainville Island, Hawaii, Awa, and looking at that.
Well, those are in the southern hemisphere, though.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering whether some of that activity has drifted up and what we're seeing there in the right-hand corner.
I'm not, honestly, I'm not sure. But there is
just a food for thought on that one.
Small potential for activity down there in the South Pacific in about a week or two. Small potential, as you would get in the early season. But up here in the Western Pacific, just to fully answer that question, it definitely could become a major typhoon. Looking at more Gulf of Mexico imagery, this is what Zeta looks like right now. Visible here, the glorious GOES 16 satellite, showing you very well how the storm has rematerialized in the last few hours. The western cloud tops bursting up, and we now have Wyatt on the line, and you are near the path of the storm.
Yes, it just looking at that satellite, it is. I don't have much to say about that right now about the satellite. It's just, I do have something to say though. I mean, I would never wish a storm on anybody, but I mean, we really don't need that here. You know, we went through Sally a month ago around here, and if we get a direct hit from the inner core from this thing, that would not be good either. I mean, we are still expecting tropical storm force winds around here, and we have prepared for that just in case the worst happens. But hopefully, the best happens here. You know.
Well, there it is again on that imagery, and trying to encircle itself with the massive cloud tops that are blowing up again. Daylight just fading there. We've also got Nelson. You're in the actual main path of the storm over in New Orleans, and we've been checking in with you every so often. What's the latest there?
Yes, good evening. Well, numerous parish governments have started issuing both mandatory and voluntary evacuation orders. If you're in the area, check your parish government's website or any of the local news outlets. They'll tell you everything you need to know. It's a long list, so there's no real point in reciting it here. Right now, we've had some showers come through the New Orleans area. Not a whole lot of rain, but it is keeping everything muggy and will stay muggy through the passage of the storm. What I've noticed around the area is the parking restrictions on the streets. We have what's called neutral grounds in New Orleans, and any other place knows them as a median, but we have our own special word for things because we're degenerates. And usually those are where the streetcars run. They are protected areas, nice trees, nice plantings, things like that. Usually you cannot put your vehicles on them. However, those restrictions have been lifted, and I've already seen the neutral ground start to fill up with vehicles. As mentioned yesterday, we are down one turbine at the Sewage and Water Board, which is going to make the pumping system a little bit less effective. Now, I don't want anybody to go run away and think that we're talking Hurricane Katrina water up to the eaves of houses levels. No, that's not the case. New Orleans gets localized street flooding during any type of heavy rainfall. It just is what it is. The infrastructure's old and poor, and we live with it begrudgingly. But we are down a pump, so any street that does get water on it, depending on where you are, not a pump, I'm sorry, a generator, any street that gets water on it, depending on where you are, may take longer to drain than usual. So people have actually been out cleaning the catch basins, cleaning the sewer basins of leaves because it's fall, and getting all the detritus out of the way so that everything can drain as effectively as possible. There's only so much we can do on our side as citizens, and I've seen people doing it. I've also noticed that at the grocery stores, there is still water available at some of the stores that I've been to, which is it's kind of a mixed sign because either everybody's got their water from doing this 6 or 7 times this year, or people are waiting till the last minute. I think based on the habits that I've observed this season, that everybody simply has the water and the supplies that they need to get through the storm. If they don't, they're going to need to do that as soon as possible because they really expect the highest winds and rains to come through the metropolitan area before the actual center of the storm does. They're expecting shear to blow the convection away from the center, some of the higher winds away from the center, and so they actually expect the big impacts to be starting at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
And we'll be there to pick that up, of course. What about surge potential issues regarding that? Potentially up to 8 feet, according to the National Hurricane Center.
Yeah, well, if you look down at Plaquemines and Lafourche Parish, the mouth of the Mississippi River, that little tentacle that branches off into the Gulf of Mexico, they are going to get it. But they flood with every storm. They know the drill. People have been evacuating from those areas already. My bigger concerns for the surge are going to be the Mississippi Gulf Coast, simply because of the amount of time that they are going to be receiving winds from the south. And if the highest winds are displaced from the center, that means that all the strongest winds will be pushing water up into areas like Gulfport, Biloxi, past Christian. So there is considerable risk, and actually I've just seen the graphic that shows that 5 to 8 feet is on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And that's why, eventually for the lower Plaquemines Parish in Louisiana, the winds will shift more quickly, alleviating the storm surge problem.
All right, going back to Molave, there's the latest imagery of it again. Just trying to get a center point on this, and it would appear that the storm has moved around 30 miles, or maybe just less than that, in the last 40 minutes. Is that right? It's hard to tell.
That's a very fast speed for the last 40 minutes.
Maybe a little less. Certainly oscillations there. I would expect landfall will be in about 2 or 3 hours, the way it's looking. The center is very close to land though already.
Yeah, very close. Look at that.
Let's see what more questions we've got right now. Do we think that Zeta's regained hurricane status yet?
As of this minute, I don't believe so. It needs to get back out to more open water for that to help.
Well, it sort of is over open water at this point.
A bit more out to sea. Yeah.
I don't think that it's a hurricane yet. I do think it will eventually regain hurricane strength now. It would be nice to have Recon in there right now. They were heading
Actually,
over
yeah,
there, but
that reminds me.
we have lost signal from them, it looks like.
No.
Outrageous.
What
Yeah,
I've got
last
here just
last
says
report was at 2139Z.
2139Z, yeah, and it's currently
Nearly 2 hours ago.
Wow.
That is
Wow.
concerning because they only got from Biloxi to not even Plaquemine. Yeah, south of Lake Pontchartrain off the coast though.
Yeah, that was 2 hours ago. That's really not good.
Alright, so, well, we'll hear if there's
So
any
that
more
means-
news on that.
Yeah, that means in this case, for at least the next several hours, we'll have to rely on other techniques to estimate the intensity, such as surface observations from buoys and rigs, as well as the ADT, the automated Borac technique. And,
Okay. Now, the Recon data is not being publicly transmitted, but there still could be a chance that it's being received at the National Hurricane Center, so we'll see if they say anything at their advisory. But if they don't have the data, then there's a bit of a risk going on here, because with 24 hours or less to landfall, the National Hurricane Center are going to have to guess based on indirect observations, which normally is okay, but with a storm that could be rapidly intensifying for all we know, we don't know, they'll miss that if they're looking at just satellite imagery.
yeah, but hopefully that it's for some reason being only privately transmitted to the NHC.
We'll find out when they update in half an hour. And just a reminder about the landfall time, that's expected to be around afternoon time, mid-afternoon on Wednesday. So even though it's on the opposite end of the Gulf right now, it will be right with you in about 18 hours or less.
Yeah, they're saying 2 local time is the earliest they could.
Lots of questions about whether Zeta will reach Category 2. Any thoughts from the team?
I doubt it, if I'm honest. I can't
Yeah.
say certain, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
I mean, I would like to see what it's doing right now. I would like to know what the intensity is and what
And-
the pressure and wind tendency is
And
before
yeah,
I would make that.
yeah, and again,
Yes,
for that we
really.
need Recon.
Shall we consider one of the very worst case scenarios? The dreaded NAM 3-kilometer run has the storm making landfall at 961 millibars, high-end Category 2. That's your very worst case scenario right there.
So that's high-end Category 2. Okay.
The NAM
That's
12-kilometer, which is lower resolution but is actually more accurate, is having a much more tame 989 millibar landfall. And actually, I don't even think they're calling for hurricane force winds with that. 60 knots, I think. So that's interesting.
Yeah,
And that's
uh,
a much more accurate one.
Sorry?
the NAM 3-kilometer.
Go ahead.
The NAM 3-kilometer this time around seems to be a bit more reasonable. Normally,
Well, I mean,
it
just
overdoes
for reference,
convection. Yeah, just for
Hurricane
Normally
Hannah
it brings
this
it to-
year, NAM 3-kilometer wanted a 961 landfall there as well. So if it transpires the same as Hannah, you're looking at 90 miles an hour, I guess.
yeah. Normally, though, it would bring it to a 910 or an 890 millibars.
Oh dear, don't. They did that with Delta.
Yes.
And looking also at the HRRR model, which in my experience has been pretty damn good with track verification. Only goes out 18 hours, but the model runs every hour. And at the moment it's 989 millibars, still offshore, 18 hours from now.
Yeah, I do want to point out, though, with the HRRR, whenever the NHC was still forecasting Sally to hit the Mississippi coast, HRRR deviated from the rest of the models and brought it right to where it made landfall, actually.
Wow. I must
Yeah.
say though, this is interesting just that I'm looking at it. I've just noticed this. The HRRR model still has it around probably 100 miles offshore at Oh no, that's about right. 11 a.m., 12 noon. So slightly slower with the timing, only slightly.
HRRR, I'm looking at HRRR, and that one seems to have it a bit more east this time too, bringing it to the Mississippi coast around Gulfport, and having the inner core. It looks like it goes into Mobile.
The RGEM model, we're just looking at all the mesoscales at the moment. That's a better solution. A 996 millibar landfall with winds of only about 60 miles per hour. That would be something that we could all hope for. Widespread winds, though, in that particular solution.
That one seems pretty far west to me, to be honest. That one takes it almost to Morgan City.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. And people in the comments saying that HWRF predicts a 962 millibar landfall. Unlikely. How long does Zeta have to strengthen? It's got 18 hours or less. Is there a possibility that Invest 99W becomes a significant typhoon? In a way, what you'll notice, 99W again is the one in the middle. Should be a tropical depression now from the JTWC, but they haven't pulled the trigger yet. The JMA have declared it to be a tropical depression. You can see the size comparison between Molave, which is just on the coast of Vietnam there, fairly average size for a typhoon, and the new area, which is comparably quite tiny. And the models suggest it will remain small for pretty much all of its life. It will sink towards the west-southwest through the Philippines again, possibly the same area that Molave just took through, and then onto the coast of Vietnam. And again, that could be in the same area. But the fact that this system is going to be much smaller means that ultimately it won't affect as many people, but chances of rapid intensification are much, much higher on that. Keep sending in your questions. Start your message with Force 13 all in text whilst we're on the air here. We are tracking multiple tropical and subtropical cyclones around the world at this time. Typhoon Molave is about to make landfall on the central coast of Vietnam. Invest 99W is the JTWC designation for that area in the middle. On the right hand side, 90W, which is over the easternmost Micronesian islands, and that is expected to become a significant typhoon as well. National Hurricane Center will update in about 25 minutes on Tropical Storm Zeta and whether they think it might be near a hurricane status or not. Is there any chance that they would run with a hurricane if they don't have the Recon data?
It depends if they have overwhelming evidence from the automated Dvorak technique and other satellite estimation techniques. But I would say, just looking at it, they would probably go with 65, maybe 70 miles per hour. We'll see.
And let's just take a look once again at the late imagery, the visibles there just fading away now to the infrared as night falls in the area. So there it is again, you can see it on the infrared fully there in those later frames. Part of an eye wall developing, well, potentially, might be, might not be, it's under a lot of convection, but maybe there's something brewing again and it's on its way to hurricane status.
Somebody earlier, like a minute ago, asked the question, how large is Zeta? That's a good question, because tropical storm force winds only extend outward up to about 140 miles from the center. But if you look at it on satellite, the full picture, it's got a nice feeder band outside of it that extends really far from the center. And I'm actually going to measure it quickly across.
It's massive.
Yeah, I'm getting 863 miles from furthest outflow on the west side all the way to the east side.
Okay, yeah. Very expansive on the eastern side.
Yes. And that would be from about where that cold front is, all the way to the other side.
A question there, do you think Zeta could lose its outer bands and become much smaller? It's sort of in the process of doing that right now by the looks of things. What do we think?
I'm not sure.
Nathan, I would have to agree with that assessment. I mean, just looking at the presentation, you can see that convective band that we've been talking about, where its resurgence is wrapping around. And then there's quite a distance, almost half of the entire Gulf of Mexico, to that northeast side where the outer bands are. I think that the approaching cold front, as well as its strengthening, will eventually eject those, and you will end up with a much smaller, more compact storm.
And that is a significant cold front, isn't it? You can see, I don't know if it's related, but the clouds streaming off the coast of Texas there in that imagery throughout today.
Yeah, that's the boundary of the cold front.
Yep.
It's that big 500 millibar height shortwave trough that they've been talking about. And actually, once it becomes the steering pattern for Zeta, right now it's being steered by the high pressure over Florida. But once that cold front takes the steering over, we're actually expected to go from temperatures in the mid-80s today here in New Orleans to Thursday being in the 60s for the first time, or a high in the 60s for the first time this year.
Really curling around with those cloud tops just now.
Yes. That cold front's also going to be a very important steering feature. Anyway.
Yeah, just still looking at it there. Obviously the weakness on the eastern side, but blowing up convection quite abundantly on the southwestern side of the storm. And it remains to be seen how long this big convective burst will last. We're waiting also for the National Hurricane Center's update. You'll know that they don't have data if they come out with the update early. I think they will have some data that we don't have here. So that'll be interesting to see. Also watching eyes on the Western Pacific, whether the JMA might just go ahead and name that depression. Who knows whether it's a tropical storm or not. We don't have the latest information from the ASCAT satellite. But those are the two major storms right now. Well, getting towards three. Obviously Molave making landfall in Vietnam, the main feature on tonight's stream. And let's go back to it right now. There it is, the latest imagery. As you can see, it looked much better at the start of that loop than it is towards the end. Land interaction might be having some effect, or maybe it's just fortuitously decided to implode right now. Northeastern side looks appalling, and it looks good value for downgrading to Category 2 status, which is what we did at the top of the hour. And I'm struggling for context because I don't have an indicator of how long this satellite loop is, but I think it's something like 2 hours, so give it another 2 hours and you should have landfall there. It gets increasingly hard to tell when the eye disappears because you're then looking for where the center is buried underneath all of that convection. Let's see if we have any more comments just now. Do we have new information about the South Atlantic disturbance? Okay, I'm going to get some imagery of that soon, because we need to take a look at that. Let's see if we can see what's going on with Tim, who's showing us some imagery, and I can hear feedback of myself on it, unfortunately, but I'll show it briefly. Just so that everyone can see it, because I've just faded him down. but you can see a view there. I assume that is in Vietnam, somewhere near where the storm is moving ashore. Doesn't look particularly windy at that location, but obviously very wet. The streets are very quiet, empty even, and actually maybe that's a little bit of debris on the right hand side of the road there, can't quite tell, but yes?
I believe that's from Da Nang in
Da
Vietnam.
Nang. So that is a fair distance from where the storm will be making landfall. I think it's something like, I say a fair distance, it's not that far, but it will be about 110 miles away.
I think it's on the north side of the typhoon.
Yeah, definitely on the northern side, so fairly quiet there. I doubt we'll get any cameras closer than that. So there we go. Again, I don't know how to stop that just now. Oh, there we go. We've managed it. Ah, there we go. I think I can show the webcam without it picking up my voice. Technology these days. But you can see large parts of the Vietnamese coast will be affected by Molave. As I said earlier, we could see 20 inches of rain near the landfall zone. That's about, what is that in millimeters? I'm losing my train of thought on that one. 500. So certainly a lot of rainfall in an area that doesn't need it, and extending inland into neighbouring countries such as Laos as well. Let's go back to Zeta and a wider shot here. The banding really expanding as it continues in a northwesterly direction. Still blowing up that convection. Let's go back to the rapid imagery, and this is the great thing about modern cyclone tracking. I don't think people would be able to cope with the old technology when you can take a look at 1 minute imagery today.
Alright, when are you going live?
We are live.
We are live now.
Ryan is also
it's
here.
because you're in the wrong room.
Yes, we are indeed. I've just noticed that. Well, welcome aboard.
That's why.
Oh.
So what's
You're-
exactly
you're on
happening?
the
Get me
air,
up to
Ryan.
speed. Get me up to speed, please.
Well, Zeta could become a hurricane again soon. 65
Yeah.
miles per hour from the latest National Hurricane Center advisory. Their next update is out in just less than 20 minutes. Typhoon Molave about to make landfall on the coast of Vietnam. So anyone who's just joined us like Ryan has, that's your scoop just there in 2 sentences.
No problem. In regards to Zeta, that's where my expertise is more or less the Atlantic. More or less going to quickly re-strengthen over the warm Gulf waters and probably make landfall as a hurricane, if not weakening at the time.
We were just going over the models not so long ago, and it's going to be close.
Yeah. I think the main concern is actually surge in the Mississippi area. You could even get up to 5 or even 8 feet of inundation. It's easily possible.
Just as possible that it could be a brief Category 2 even at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Not right now, but later on. So we'll see how that one transpires. But as we said, less than 18 hours until this landfall on a very weary Louisiana coast that have been affected by so many hurricanes and hurricane warnings and storm surge warnings this year. Quite remarkable. Is it rare, here's a question, is it rare that a hurricane like Zeta would hit Louisiana during the month of October? Not particularly.
No, not at all. Most of the things that happen in October in regards to Atlantic hurricanes come out from the Caribbean into the Gulf. And
Okay.
usually they try to swing east as well.
The current CDPS rating on Zeta, and what are our thoughts on the developing inner core of Zeta. So the CDPS is something that I've not looked at in a little while actually. does anyone have CDPS data on that? I've only got Molave here, and that's a stage 7, believe it or not.
According to my last update, actually, no, not my last update, because that was Yucatan. I'm not sure that matters anymore.
No.
Yeah, let me quickly
I imagine it's
find-
going to be something like stage 4, maybe?
Well, where have we got? Zeta. No, that's Yucatan again. Oh, I don't know.
Maybe
Oh,
stage
Zeta.
4 if it gets towards
Um,
middle category 1 status.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess around 3 or 4. Because again, yeah, 3 or 4. I really don't know.
Hmm. Well, let's not speculate in that case, but nonetheless, we could be looking at a hurricane landfall with 8 feet of storm surge potentially on the eastern side of this storm.
Although we could have an actual CDPS rating in 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And Wyatt, you've posted a graphic here.
Yes.
That's a potential wind threat. Who's made this? Is this from National Weather Service?
Yes, that is, in fact, from the National Weather Service. That is their forecast they have compiled, where the potential for winds are, depending on the color zone you're in. I'm just.
So certainly the potential for hurricane
Yes.
conditions in the
Are you? You're showing
southeast.
it right?
Yes, we've got that
There
here.
we
yeah.
There we go. So the area in yellow does mean that there could be some 39 to 57 mile per hour winds, and the area in orange means that there could be 58 to 73 mile per hour winds, and the area in red means that there's a potential for hurricane force winds. So, as you can see on there, that yellow area does expand over a very large area. So, this could potentially, in the worst case scenario, have a very large wind field that impacts a wide swath area, and that could do widespread damage, to trees.
Montgomery,
And,
Birmingham, Atlanta, all in that yellow area
Yeah.
for potential
And then-
tropical storm winds.
The orange area, it goes to Meridian and Greenville, Evergreen, Mobile, Pensacola, New Orleans, Hattiesburg, and then that red area, it looks like that it avoids major population areas,
Yep.
maybe Grand Isle, and to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised for that red area to be expanded to the Mississippi immediate coast at the last minute, or a bit further inland in southeastern Louisiana, depending on how long it stays a hurricane.
Well, not only that, but also the general motion. We're still talking about a storm that's moving towards the northwest as of the last update and all the satellite imagery. So until it takes the turn to the north and gets picked up by the cold front, really that's all subject to change, and that's something
Yes.
important to be aware of. I mean, this, as much as there is model agreement, the exact locations are still not set in stone. And as you see from that graphic, all it has to do is maintain itself just a little bit further west, and then you've got the potential for hurricane force winds in the metropolitan New Orleans area. And I do agree that I think those will eventually be extended to the Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to say I did post the link to that in the chat, and they do update that graphic every 6 hours. That's a really good graphic to look at.
Very good. What would a storm do if it was in the Gulf of Mexico in December? We're getting onto the hypothetical questions here, it would seem.
Probably not a lot.
Probably wouldn't last very long, honestly. Also, is a November Category 5 possible? Yes, it is. People have been saying it all year. Will the Atlantic get a Category 5 this year? It's not over till it's over. The chances of Category 5 slips quite substantially week by week now as we get towards the very late stages of the season, but we've had it happen later than this, definitely.
I think it should be need reminded the storm is nearly 2 days out. So it is. and it is going to cause some inundation of seawater, particularly around the Mississippi area.
This
So if you're
not even
told,
2 days out. It's within one
yeah,
day.
Yeah.
yeah, less than 2 days out. So if you're told to leave by officials, you should probably leave, especially within that. But you guys know in the Mississippi area, in the Gulf area, more than I do on this. But yeah, if you're told to leave, regardless, you should probably leave, as the risk of water is quite high of this storm in those particular areas of Bay St. Louis, Pass Christian, Long Beach, Gulfport, and even Biloxi, along with the outer, the outer islands near New Orleans.
The update is out from the National Hurricane Center, and they've remained conservative on it. They mustn't have any extra information, or maybe they do, and they just haven't found anything stronger. Who knows? But anyway, 65 miles per hour, pressure of 990 millibars. That's the update from National Hurricane Center. Nothing else has changed there. No warning changes.
The wind field does remain the same at 140 miles, by the way, so it is a fairly large system.
And that is, of course, an intermediate advisory. They don't update wind fields actually usually on a intermediate advisory, or indeed the forecast intensities. So, well, interesting to see, but that's what the National Hurricane Center have gone with: 65 miles per hour and a pressure of 990. Let's go back to our main feature tonight, looking back at the Western Pacific and Typhoon Molave, which is imminently making landfall on the coast of Vietnam, just south of Cang Ngai. The storm is expected to arrive, or well, the storm has arrived, but the eye is expected to arrive within a couple of hours or less. Getting hard to get a read on where the actual center of this storm is. But it does appear to be getting ever closer. I'm not sure exactly when it might make landfall, but at this point the strongest winds must be getting very close to land, and so there's not a particular distinction between the storm having made landfall and the strongest winds having reached the coast.
Right. I'm just seeing here, we have a CDPS scale rating for Zeta. It is a stage 4.
As we speculated, so stage 4 on the CDPS, potential for significant extensive damage. And Molave, last we knew, was still a stage 7, which is quite catastrophic. It might have gone down just to a stage 6 recently, but it's a big storm for Vietnam. This could be the worst one of the season for them. Let's see if we have more questions then at this point. People quite surprised actually that the National Hurricane Center has gone with a pressure of 990 millibars. What was it before? 984, wasn't it?
Oh, interesting.
So,
It's
yeah, you're right
weakening.
on that. That is a bit of a surprise. Let's just see.
Well,
I'm just going to take a little look what we anticipated on it, and how it's transpired.
I do want to say that isn't really much of a surprise to me, because they haven't had Recon ever since it fell apart after moving into the Gulf of Mexico. And now it's only just started to reorganize, so there is a chance that it did go up in pressure.
No, but
and just didn't know
from
about
984 to 990 in the last 3 hours, really?
it. Well, they didn't have a recon come in at 4. It was just an estimated pressure.
Yeah, we still have no
But
update.
it's got better since then.
Yeah.
But it did get worse since the last recon.
In any case, there it is. You make your own minds up looking at the satellite imagery, whether this is getting stronger or not. To me, it looks like it is.
Blew up there in the last couple of loops. And that's going to condense right round. and then it'll just all just keep going until close to landfall or at landfall. There may be some shear, but there isn't any shear that I personally know of ahead of it.
I want to say the latest tropical weather outlook has been released, and there is no new disturbances at this time, which is a good thing.
Well, that's a relief.
Nice.
So maybe in 2 or 3 days, we might have a clear board again at the National Hurricane Center HQ.
For the time being.
Well, what has been a remarkable season so far. Zeta, the 27th named storm of this Atlantic hurricane season, 28th tropical cyclone, and if you count the Atlantic southern side as well, there's another one, potentially two, if you go by what the Brazilians are saying, by designating a front as a subtropical storm. I'll never understand that, but an actual subtropical storm appears to have formed just south of it.
Yeah, but would that be one would that one be designated as O2Q, or am I mistaking things? Again.
Well, that would be a NOAA designation, I think.
Oh, okay, never mind me then.
That would be a US designation. So we've not had one Q, have we?
I have no idea. Again, I'm
Gotta get
just
to
going
one
off-
first.
I'm just going off the fact, oh, there's 2 subtropicals in the southern Atlantic. So, just ignore me. Oh dear.
What is the ace for the Atlantic so far? Well, actually, if you've not seen it, I wrote an article on the Force 13 website yesterday about where we are with ace right now, explaining where we are in the Atlantic in particular, as well as the Pacific, but the Atlantic, we're at something like 130 ace, maybe a little bit more than that now with Zeta, which is still only last week did it pass half of what the 1933 Atlantic hurricane season's ace has had. So number of storms isn't everything. ACE calculates the accumulated cyclone energy, storms over 6-hour periods, so longer lasting storms get higher ACE amounts. I think it's the truest way to measure how busy a season has been. But what's more telling is the Pacific has been extremely quiet. The Western Pacific, I think, is still only at, well, until Molave, I think it was only at 91. And even with Molave, and even with a couple more typhoons, this could still be the quietest typhoon season in terms of accumulated cyclone energy since our records begin in 1945. So that would be quite something.
Indeed, it would be.
But there's definitely signs that the Western Pacific is bouncing back, because on the models, obviously you've got these 3 systems that we're looking at here. Molave near the end of its life now, moving into Vietnam shortly. It's just past its peak indeed. The new tropical depression that's just starting out will be heading towards the Philippines and then towards Vietnam, and then that other area of interest down the bottom right hand corner of your screen, that will become another tropical cyclone and potentially a major typhoon and approach either the Philippines, Taiwan, or even the Ryukyu Islands of Japan next week. And models suggesting that behind that there will be another one. So the train will continue.
So where the Western Pacific has now started to pick up. As the Atlantic dies down, the Western Pacific starts.
It usually goes in those kinds of sequences.
Mm-hmm.
Just doing a final check here on where we're at with Molave, getting very close to landfall this time. We're not going to stay on the air because I don't think we could tell you anytime soon whenever it actually had made landfall or not, because we're really guessing looking underneath all that convection, unless there's radar somewhere. But from what we can see right now, about 40 miles offshore, and it'll probably get there in about 2 hours. Is there anything from our team that you would like to discuss before we finish up here?
Well, we do actually have radar of, I believe, Molave. I nearly forgot the name of the storm again. Uh, so
Hold on, let's see here.
Bring it up.
Ah, so this is fairly recent by the looks of things, and trying to make out the outlines. I don't think it's showing the coastal outline there. It's very close, I think. The edge of the
Yeah.
eye about to reach the coast. Yes.
Yes, indeed. Looks like that the eye wall is really, really close to land right now. So hopefully
Yeah,
everybody stays safe.
it's in a shelter.
Yes.
yeah.
What's
Cool.
the current intensity on it? Is it equivalent to a category 3?
We've made it a high-end category 2. Could we zoom out on that slightly?
So I would treat it as if an extreme wind warning was issued by the United States National Weather Service, because that's issued if it's supposed to be gusty winds over 115.
Now you can see here satellite suggesting north and northeastern side looking bad, and the radar confirms that there's hardly anything of that northern eye wall. We can't really see the northeast, but I imagine there won't be much there. So it's the southern side that will really be the worst place to be in this storm, probably. Looking at it, certainly in terms of a deluge of rain. So places, let's see, just north of Quinta, along the coast there, extending up around 50 miles or so, we'll probably get the worst conditions. And then after it moves inland, you're looking at it entering the southern part of Laos and into Thailand even. Could deliver significant rainfall amounts to those countries as well. And in northeastern Cambodia as well, some rainfall already occurring there at this point. Nelson, did you have a comment just then?
No, sorry, I did not.
You just for everyone else's attention though, you did confirm just then that they do have the Recon, the National Hurricane Center?
Well, I believe that there's Recon. There was a Recon flight that left, but again, as we've talked about, is that the data isn't being transferred to the public servers. You know, we talked about it and waiting for the advisory. I'm looking into what may have happened there. I don't have any hard information, but we know Recon took off. We know it would be in the storm if it were transmitting, you know, this time after takeoff. So it would be at its target time. We just don't have the information. But again, the National Weather Service says that they are getting information from Recon. That's what the discrepancy in the central pressure is. So I don't know exactly where to go with that. I'm still trying to figure out if anyone's going to acknowledge what happened with the Recon now.
I heard from somebody in the public Discord server that the Recon data is actually private for some reason, and then that it's being transmitted to a fax machine at the National Hurricane Center.
Okay, well, that's an interesting way to do things.
Why would they do that?
Well, I do know with Hurricane Laura earlier this year, I think there was 1 or 2 Air Force reconnaissance missions where the public transmitter to publicly give recon data for us weather enthusiasts was down and not working, but the National Hurricane Center, of course, have a direct feed to that, so hence I believe, and that was back when, I think it was during when they upgraded Laura to a Cat 3, if I'm not mistaken, when they went into there and found out it was a Cat 3 or high-end Cat 2, even though the recon data to the public wasn't available, so it could be an issue again with that, with the transmitter for the public at least, could be down again, unfortunately, like it was with Laura at one point.
Alright, thanks very much to our team for taking part in tonight's stream and helping us along here. Zeta remains a big threat towards the coast of the US, the Gulf Coast. National Hurricane Center doesn't think it's intensified just yet. Molave weakening slightly as it makes landfall in Vietnam, which it will do in an hour or two, and could cause severe issues there in terms of rainfall. But in the meantime, you can join our Discord server for more tropical weather chat with the team and many viewers on there as well, something like 1,200 at this point. Discord.gg/Force13. And you can follow us on our social media platforms. We'll have more video updates on YouTube and plenty of graphics on our Twitter and Facebook feeds as well. That's it for tonight. We'll be back again soon with more Zeta coverage. Stay tuned.